Everybody, I'm Jordan with PDQ.com. Today we're going to be talking about using PowerShell to create scheduled tasks, or using group policy for the same thing. It's basically a way to be able to run stuff against machines where the users, where it requires the user profile, where it's not always so simple with a regular deploy. All right. I guess for the first part, if you can use group policy, do. Group policy it's fantastic at what it does. There's no reason to try to reinvent the wheel. Understand there's some
It's like the right tool for the right tool for the right job, right, Jordan?
Yeah, I understand not everyone has access to it based on their environment, but if you can use group policy, you can just do these log on or log off scripts where you can put in a PowerShell script, or there's others, but PowerShell scripts mostly. Why use anything else? That you can kind of run on log on or log off, where you can hit the user profile and you don't have to, and then it's stored centrally, so you don't have to track it. If you are looking to do this, where you're looking to control the user's environment at all, that would be my recommendation. But we get reports of people that can't, so we're just going to kind of work on building out a way that they can perform something similar without the central repository, as awesome as that is.
Often that you get that. Sorry, man. It's often you get that question where it's like, it's like, I don't have access to that, so how do I do it? And this is how, Joe's going to show you how to get access to GPOs and stuff.
Yep. So with all things with PowerShell, the names of their commands are usually right on the nose. It's verb dash and then exactly what you're looking for. So we're looking for I'm doing git command to pull all of them here. Scheduled tasks. I don't know if there's an S at the end, so I'm going to leave that off just in case. That's not good. Did I misspell schedule? Or did I left off scheduled?
Off to a great start.
There we are. There's a D in there.
Are you using my keyboard again?
I don't need your equipment to fail on my own. I do it. All right. So the important thing with this one is it's not just so much as just a new dash schedule task. You have to define a couple of parameters, and there's commands for each one. So if we'll start off with just get schedule task, or I guess we'll do new schedule task. And then, as you saw there's action. This is what the schedule task will actually be doing. The principle, which I'll dive into this one a little bit. There's a little bit more to that one. The setting set, which actually I'll just run that one now. These are just the default settings that it's going to come. So if you don't want to allow something like the on-demand start, or you don't want it enabled initially, you can change that schedule set there and assign it to a variable and push that when you're actually creating it. And then the last one would be trigger. This is how often it runs, which the one we're mostly focused on is at logon. There's all kinds of settings you can do, but we're figuring in this case, if it's machine level, you can use either PDQ deploy. That's my recommendation. I like the product a lot. Or anything else where you can impact the machine directly, but we're looking to use scheduled task to impact user-specific things. Something like local policy. If you don't have the group policy, you can change something, or uninstalling software that you don't want, installing printers, stuff like that, where when a user logs on, you want this to run for them. But outside of that, you can get pretty complex with it. You can set, we're going to do it once at, 7 a.m. And then you can put in things like a repetition interval. So it's going to repeat every 30 minutes, but it has to be a time span for this one. So it's going to be just in parentheses here, new dash time span. That's not how you spell time at all. New time span, and then you could just do minutes for 30.
I just want to know, Jordan, what makes you think I'm going to log on at 7 a.m., dude? I never get up that early.
Well, that's why you can set multiple triggers. So you have set one for log on and one that runs at 7 a.m., and it's going to kick off either way at that point. And then if you wanted to get, if you want to get malicious, you can put like a random delay in there of 10 minutes. So let's say I was putting in some sort of video, YouTube video, He-Man singing maybe, and I wanted this to run often. I could set in here with the delay of 30 minutes. So this is going to, or not 30, we'll do 10 minutes. So this is going to run starting at 7 a.m. every 30 minutes, but it's not exactly 30 minutes at this point. It's going to take a random interval of 10 minutes less or longer, and run at that point. And then if we wanted to run this as the NT authority system with a pass-through, it's going to send the volume through without the video. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that'd be kind of funny. right,
I got a question for you.
Okay.
Why would you use a random delay? I mean, I understand why you're doing it, but I'm trying to think of a case where you would use a random delay.
Well, something where if it's like you don't want it to run as soon as they log on, you could put in a delay like that where it delays, up to 30 minutes at that point, so it's not runs right away. I can't think of a perfect example, but hey, if anyone has it, I'd love to know. Load balancing. Thank you, Marcel. I mean, that's the idea I just had without reading the chat was load balancing. Was all right, and the last thing that we went over that I kind of skipped over was the principle. And what this is for, so if you build something, just if you build a task schedule and I send it out to a machine to build that, it's going to use the credentials as the user that runs it when it builds it. So it could be, if I use my own credentials, it's going to run as me. So if you're looking for a logon, especially where it's something where it's running Chrome or something along those lines, it's not going to pop up in that window because it's only going to run for my credentials instance. So with the principal, you can specify a group ID, and this is where you do like the built-in users. This would run for all users or admin. Is it user or users? Huh. And then just for that one,
I'm gambling. Do it with the S. Do it with the S.
Just well, I have an example where I actually have it in there, and I'm not running this one, so I'm sure we'll correct that when we get to it. And then just I set the run level highest just so if it needs elevated permissions, it will have it. For this one, if they are a part of the users group on that machine, then it's going to run in their instance. It's just a way to kind of work around to run as them, just to kind of make it easier. It's basically mimicking what's going to happen if you do a logon script for the group policy. All right, so I suppose real world examples. We have a couple things. The two most common things where we need a specific user profile on this one is it's removing software that's installed per user profile. We're going to be doing the Apex one, which shows up there with the newer versions of Windows. The all users does work, so this is kind of less value. Another example is Firefox, which if they don't have permission to install, will still install in their user profile. You could go and have this run on logon where it's going to take Firefox out there if you didn't want it. So basically this is I did an Apex removal long ago, and I reuse this because I don't want to create new things. That sounds like a lot of work. We're just defining a whitelist of things we don't want to remove: MS Paint, calculator, Windows Store. Like Windows Store is not going to be there on the enterprise, and it's not so much I want to keep it, but it's not going to let you uninstall it anyway. So it's just to avoid errors. And then we're going to go through, and for each one in our whitelist, we're going to find dependencies and add that to the whitelist. So we don't try to remove the dependencies. Because once again, it's not going to let you. It just throw up an error on that one. So we're just kind of avoiding things that are going to throw up an error. And then at the end of the thing, we're going to come at list. We're going to grab it if it is in our matched list of things to remove, and it's going to remove the Apex package. And just real quick if you did want to just run this against all users, it's not just a direct all users. You have to do a package filter type as bundle and pipe that into all users. That's not super relevant, but I noticed with the all users, people are running into errors in online forums, and specifying that as bundle is what's going to make it work when you pipe it into the all users over here. Like that. But we don't want that one. That's for the different method. We're just running this on a single user. All right, so we're running this script, and to build the actual task, we're coming in here. As you can see, we're defining the action, and we're running PowerShell with the PowerShell script that we made. Apex PS1 is different than what I named this one, so why don't we make that match so it doesn't fail. Testing's fun. All right, and then the next thing, we're setting the time. We're just going to run this one on logon, because this one, when they log in, is when we want to remove, and we're going to run it against them. I'm not setting anything specific on the setting sets, but this is where you come in here and like disable demand start or have it disabled to start, where you can change those kind of settings. And then right here, we're building basically the new scheduled task, where we're adding all the variables we just put in there, the time to do stuff, and apparently my names are really on the nose and unnecessarily long. All right, and then the last step is the register scheduled task, and that's where we're taking the new task we built, and we're putting it in as an input object. So I guess we'll do that as a new package. Since I don't have that script out on a file share, we're going to run the first step to kind of copy that over to their machine. Where did I put that? In the secret of life. FX removal, and we're just going to put it in the C drive temp because I'm not real clever with coming up with a good place. But in a real world case, you're going to want to put that somewhere where the user's not likely to find it and delete it if you are planning to run against it often. Save that as a file copy, and then the next step is a PowerShell step where we're going to use the PowerShell we just went over here. And I could just point it to the actual script that I have saved there, but apparently I like doing the copy and paste a lot. And I guess we name it. All right, and now we have that. Just I guess I should verify. We're going to run that against Wile E. Coyote. That guy's hijinks make him a perfect example case.
Yeah, I just once want him to catch the bird. I do.
Is there two E's in Wiley? No, there's not. Okay. So in the future, I'll use an example that I can spell. All right, we're just going to run that one. I guess while that's connecting, do we have any questions? All right.
Hey, Jordan, I would like to schedule a task to launch a reg to modify a regedit's key. And my second purpose is to know how to do a scheduled task to launch a script. Sincerely, Champlain.
Champlain, on that one, actually my next example is one where I'm doing exactly that, but looks like it's still running. A quick rundown. Basically, for the action, you set to execute PowerShell, and then I'm doing, I don't think I need start process. That seems unnecessary. As he changes it before he goes live, what could go wrong? And then it's just a set item property where you're specifying the registry key you want to change, and you can run that one. And then every time that that scheduled task run, it's going to run PowerShell with that command. Boy, I'm probably going to regret modifying that live, but I guess we'll see. All right, so I got an error. Couldn't validate settings. All right, let's go and take a look at that one. And isn't it fun, the one I didn't change is the one that broke. Let's see, settings for stuff.
The magic of live.
All right, so all I did, we have FX.
Here you get to watch Jordan's thought process. I'm
Remove
gonna David Attenborough this.
Narrate it for him.
Yeah.
Jordan in his natural habitat.
Yeah, so look at there, I don't see, let's see, you have the in the first one. Thank you, Kobe.
Observe as he thinks.
Settings for stuff. I'm not sure exactly what the is. Oh, settings for the stuff. Okay. My variable names were different. Thank you, Kofi. I would not have found that one. All right, we're gonna copy that one over.
Team support.
What's
It's so hard to do this live, guys. It's so hard.
What's best about that is I ran this, so somewhere between me testing this morning and now, I changed that without recognizing that I was changing my own stuff. All right. Now we're back in. We're going to redeploy that one.
Are definite articles common in variables?
No. I got two funny quotes with my variable names, and now look what happened. The point of variable should be describes so we know what it is without being too complex. And I failed again.
I think it's just because you sabotage yourself. Otherwise, we couldn't bear the awesomeness of you.
And look at that. It comes down to the again. My goodness.
Check line 4.
Check line 4.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
There you go.
All right. Now, this time, for real.
This time for
realsies.
sure.
Let me go in there. So
Was that a mulligan?
The takeaway from this one is make sure your variable names are the same across the board. Otherwise, it's going to have a null variable, and you're going to look really dumb on a webcast in front of people. I would say
Takeaway.
peers, but I think I have to elevate my game before I become your guys' peer.
Takeaway 2 is use VS Code.
All right, this time it's going to work. I feel it. He said without a lot of hope. Well, it hasn't failed yet, so I'm going to assume it's working. All right, successful. So now we're going to come over. This is Wile E. Coyote here, and we're going to look at the scheduled tasks, or task schedule. And I don't remember what I named it. Remove Apex. Look at that, how clear. So it did build that one, and it has all the settings that we put in there. As you can see, I didn't set a specific user, so it went with the credentials that I had when I deployed that one. If you did want to not specify a group, but just a user, you can specify any user you want. If you use something like the NT Authority system or any of the common accounts like that, you don't need to provide credentials, but if you're using a non-standard account, you would need to provide the password as well as the username. And that would be, I guess we're just doing it here, would be user here. So if this is the NT Authority, I'm not even going to try to spell that live. NT space Authority. You wouldn't need to put any sort of credentials, and then it will run as the system on that one. For the next one, which before I run this one, I'm going to check my variables. NT, oh, look at that! Someone put it in the chat for me. That is how you spell it. And VS Code would have pointed that out. Yes, thank you about VS Code. I'm told I need to start using that all the time, but I'm resistant to change. It scares me. All right, so this one is similar, only instead of building at the end the new task schedule, I'm just piping the action and the settings in there instead of in just a one input object. And this is where I am building the principal to run as the built-in users. All right, and as for the question that we took earlier about how do you change a registry, it's just your set an item property, you have to know where it is, and we're setting, in this case, the PowerShell execution policy to Joseph Ignace, which that's funny to me, but we'll change that one.
A little inside joke to yourself.
Well, that is the guy that invented the guillotine.
I thought that was Inigo Montoya.
So we set this to remote sign, and it's important, especially this one, if we're changing it. If I had my typo in there where it was remore signed, then it is going to set the execution policy for that user instance as remore signed, which isn't real. I don't know exactly what kind of issues that's going to cause, but I assume it's going to cause some not fun issues. So in this one, we're just going to go and we're going to change the execution policy to remote signed. But that's the same thing. We're building the action, trigger, the settings. We're not going to put the disabled run on default. And only difference is we're changing it to the principal of the built-in users, so every person that logs into that machine will have this run. This is like I said, the execution policy, computer is going to trump user, and if you set it with group policy, that's going to trump all of those. There's no way you can overwrite that. So this is kind of the lowest level setting, is just for that user instance. If someone came aboard and set all unsigned, or is it all unsigned? I guess I'll find out real quick. Oh, I can't even run that one. Oh, I have to specify scope. Current user, and we'll do list them. My goodness. Maybe I can stop trying to get fancy with this one. Current user. So this undefined means it's going to go with whatever the default is. I believe all signed means it has to be signed, but whatever you set it to, it's going to be set for that user. If someone sets it on the computer level, it's going to take that function over the user setting. It kind of works its way up. User computer group policy. All right, and now we're going to check our variable names because I'm a slow learner, but I do learn. See what's more stuff. Who running it? Okay.
I'm having a hard time reading the variable on line 4 without criticizing your.
You don't like that?
I'm pronouncing it in something you probably can't say on YouTube or maybe even in the chat. It's a testament to maybe using camel case.
All right. Well, I apologize for making you think those thoughts.
Making me giggle. Yeah.
All right, so this one, since we're not copying over any file this time, if we did have it, it would be the same thing. You make the PS1, you copy that over, or you have it in a file share that's accessible, and you just point it to run PowerShell from there. But in this case, we're just going to have this one we're going to say run. Maybe I should name it execution policy. All right, save that one. And I guess while we're running this one, since I'm now somewhat confident this one will run, do we have any other questions?
Hey, Jordan, how would you use a PowerShell script to run at machine boot before a user logs in? Sincerely, Tony_block.
All right, while we're deploying that one. For that one, we're going to go over to the time to do. We have at logon. And there's quite a few settings you can do that one. You can have daily, at logon. I don't know if there's one on, oh, yep, at startup right there. There is, if you are building these manually, a way to do it on logon or log off, but I haven't seen a way in PowerShell to add that. So if someone has it, that would be interesting to see. But just instead of on logon, you just want to set this to at startup, and when the machine starts up is when it will run that one. One caveat on at startup means that's going to run against the machine itself, not against the user profile, since there's no current user logged on. And that's something I guess I should have pointed out with this one. This registry I'm setting is on the HKey current user. If it was a local machine, you could run that anytime startup and it would change those registry keys. But if you're looking at current user, someone does have to be logged in to be able to find that. Hey, successful.
You sound surprised.
Well, based on how things have gone so far, yes, I am. All right, that's the same one. This one is set to with the highest privileges that we had set in there. It is running as users instead of a specific one. The trigger is the same at logon there. If you wanted to do multiple triggers like we were talking earlier, you'd build a second variable for the other trigger, like we have here, the schedule test trigger. And then just over here on the trigger settings, you just put it went too far. Just a comma and add the other variable, and it will build both of those triggers. One thing I didn't mention is on a scheduled task, you can have up to 32 actions. But just like with group policy, keep it simple. Have the scheduled task do what it's supposed to do. Don't put it all in one thing. It makes it difficult to troubleshoot. Just one action, one scheduled task. You don't have to. You could have 32. That's just my personal recommendation. All right. Now that we have all these fancy scheduled tasks, I guess you might want to track them. But since we don't have the central repository where group policy, you remove it, it's getting removed from everyone as it goes. This one, something changes, you need to be able to check in and make sure it's working right. And that one's just going to be get scheduled task. Which this is going to give you all the tasks, not necessarily the info, but we'll just run that real quick so you can see. As you can see, there's a lot of scheduled tasks in there by default. I'm going to specify the path as just the \. So if someone was so clever as to not put it in the default location, this wouldn't find it. But since I know I'm the only one that's been on this, I know I'm not clever. So you can see here we have the scheduled tasks of, I'm not sure this is real, nothing nefarious, probably a virus. It all looks good to me. So go there. If we're looking for a little bit more information, just want to pipe that into a for each. And then that's just going to be we get scheduled task info, but we're just going to tab through it until I make sure I'm right. Info, and then you have to specify from what you're piping in there, and I believe it's task name. Yeah, task name there. If we run this one, that's going to give us each of those tasks that it found there, and it's going to let you know the last run time, just a little bit more information. So if we take this and we put it into a PowerShell scanner, it's a quick way to scan all your machines to see if you have any rogue scheduled tasks. If you wanted to get really complex, you could go through and find some way to remove the default ones. I'm not sure how to do that off the top of my head, because if someone puts it in Microsoft Windows, you can't just exclude the Microsoft Windows. So there's a lot of different names in there, so it's probably one where you're just going to have a lot of data to parse, or if you're only looking at the default, you'll grab it. But we'll come into inventory now. It's tools. No, not tools. What am I looking for? Quick, bail me out, Lex. New scanner.
Yes, there you go.
We're going to name this one shed task. I'm not even going to finish. I'm stopping not because I forgot how to spell schedule, but because I'm saving time.
Sure.
Schedule.
All right, and we're just going to put that in there as script. Once again, probably better to use a file, and that way editing is going to happen in an editor, but I keep on saying to do that, and I never do. All right, and we'll just name this one a whole bunch of A's so I can find it easily for a scanner, and then run against. I guess we could run against all the machines. It doesn't really matter on that. We're going to scan the collection with a whole bunch of A's. Well, that's running. Do we have any other questions?
We sure do. Hey, Jordan, can you have the task delete itself out of Task Scheduler after it is run once? D. Martin.
Absolutely. There's a few options for that one where there's settings that you can go into. I'll just show them on this one here. There is a setting under, I believe, conditions or settings, where basically if it is not scheduled to run again, delete after 30 days. You can have that one, or you can set it to just be disabled after the one runs. But there's ways within the task scheduler to set the if it is not scheduled to run. I'm not sure where to find it off the top of my head, but let's find it. Let's see if we can find it. I'm going to start with the settings because that seems like the most likely option. So we're going to do new schedule settings set. Get rid of that. All right, and let's see here. We're looking for delete expired task after. So there is within the new schedule settings set the delete expired task after. Without looking at it, I suppose I could do a get member on that one. Without looking at it, it's probably a time span where you can set a time where that to delete. Which, if it's one where it's running a scheduled time, you can be very clear. If it's one that requires a logon, you might want to give yourself a little bit of leeway, but it will still delete after the time that you specify. All right, looks like no scanning errors if we don't scroll down. Oh, those are servers that they don't have the task object we're looking for. So those are acceptable failures. I shouldn't have run that against servers. What was I run against? Wile E. Coyote, right? Good impact. Good feedback.
Sorted alphabetically, man.
I thought I was. Wile E. Coyote. There we go. All right, and the PowerShell scanner, and we're looking for not map drives, but the scheduled tasks. And you can see in there we have all of the tasks and the information that pulls in there, so you can kind of see what time is in there. And it looks like with that, none of these have ever run, which is
We're going to schedule like it's 1999.
like it's 1999. All right, and that's pretty much it. That'll let you build everything you need for running against the user profile if it's specific to them. It doesn't have to be for logon, as we saw you can do on startup. And then just a way to kind of track what you have in there so you can go through and do the cleanup after. If you are building these, you might want to build your own path instead of just a backslash, so you can do a scan just for the ones you built that you know about, and so you know if there's any that are hanging around that shouldn't be. Do we have any other questions?
We do, as a matter of fact. We have a few. Hey guys, I was wondering if you have a rule of thumb or best practice for how many scanners to add to a scan profile before it becomes too large. Is it better to have multiple smaller scan profiles versus one larger one? Thanks guys, appreciate the webcast. Sincerely, Chris.
Well, my personal opinion on that one is it depends on how often that scan is running. If it's something that you're running constantly or a lot, you want to keep it as small as possible. But if it's something that you run once a month looking for something in particular, I don't think it matters how many you put in there. So it just depends on how fast your network is and how often it runs. Just build whatever feels right. Unless Lex disagrees with that one.
No, I agree with you. Again, certain things aren't going to change a lot, like hardware. So, you can put those in a less aggressive scan. But yeah, I'm with you, Jordan.
Okay. All right. Other questions?
Dear Jordan, is there any plan to have variables sync to and from inventory and deploy? It would be nice not to create the same variable in the other program. Package version variable in deploy, but I would like to use that same variable in inventory to check for which computers have an out-of-date package. Thanks, Nick W.
I can't speak on the roadmap specifically. I can say we have done a webcast out there where we're talking about automating packages that aren't in the package library, where we used PowerShell with a SQL query to update both of those based off the name of the file, which kind of get most where you're looking for. It's basically, since this you're building your own variables, I assume it's for a package not in our library. When you update the location for the new install file, if you just name it to that variable name, it should update both deploy and inventory. I don't know if I can find that webcast, but we can probably put that in the information below if we need to. It's just, I believe it's,
I think the title of that one's Automating Packages That Aren't in Our Package Library.
Yeah, and I believe Colby just put a link in the chat. Running that one, it's kind of a workaround for that one, but it should get mostly what you're looking for where you don't have to have the hands-on so much. All right, any other questions?
Yeah, we have another variable question. Hi, I would like to know if it is possible to make a scheduled task that updates my variables in PDQInventory. For example, if I want to make a dynamic collection to check if I have the latest version of an application, this would update the variable in the collection uses to a new version value. Thanks, Kenneth N.
Absolutely. There's going to be, we have a built-in command line tools, so you could run this as a command or PowerShell. Just you want to make sure you run the command in PowerShell specifically. But if you look at PDQInventory, we'll run that one. Inventory. You can see the last of the commands, and then one of these, update custom variable. So the schedule task can run that to update it. As far as where you're grabbing the information to update it with, that's going to be up to you, but you can pipe it into that command line and it will update the variable on the product. All right.
More questions?
Let's do it.
All right. Guys, do you know if there is a way to force Windows 10 to be upgraded? For example, from 1903 version to the 2009 version. Is that possible to think about a scheduled task which is able to do that instead of clicking download and install 20H2? Thanks, Damien S.
For that one, I assume you don't want to use WSUS for those kind of updates. When it comes to feature updates, I mean, you can use it. You can kick off whatever script you want with a scheduled task. As far as verifying that it was successful, which is why we don't generally have that in our product, is if you push it with PDQ, it's going to take long enough to update that it's not going to report back in time that it was successful. So you just kind of have to make the assumption. But for PowerShell, there are command lists for using updates where you might be able to do the feature. You're not going to get the feedback that it was successful that you're hoping for at the end of it.
All right. We've got a couple more questions for you, Jordan.
Okay.
How would you trigger and call a PDQ deployment from a user's computer scheduled task?
So I assume this one, the scheduled task already exists, but it's not running, or you just want to run it. Let's go back to our git command here. I assume there's
this one, we're turning that end user's computer into a admin where we're kicking off PDQ deploy. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. So we're just it's going to be a PowerShell where you are going to run. So there's a start schedule task here. So if you have the name of the scheduled task, you could build a tool in inventory or a package where you do the start schedule task. Make sure you have the name of the schedule you're looking to run and deploy that to the machine, and it should kick off that schedule task for you. All right. Okay.
And our final question. Hi, I'm looking to learn PowerShell. Where would you recommend I start? Thanks, Jason C.
For this one, my initial recommendation is PowerShell in a Month of Lunches by Don Jones. I think he has other books out since then that are probably maybe better to start with, but that's where I learned it. It's a fantastic book. It's an easy read that he goes over the principles. And then anything from there, he probably has recommendations. We'll get you started. It's the best way to start that I can think of. It gives you everything you need. All right. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you all have group policy, and a lot of this is invalidated. But if you do need to set scheduled tasks, whether for real-world examples or to pop up your dating profile on YouTube on a random computer, hopefully this gives you everything you know to get started and get built out. For PDQ.com, I'm Jordan.
Thanks for joining our webcast today. Congratulations, Jason C. and Kenneth N., winners of PDQ swag. Send us your info at webcast@pdq.com. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week for PDQ&A.